Are you a business owner or employee who needs to network but is terrified of walking into a room full of people you don't know? Are you afraid of being left out of conversations or being awkward in the conversations you do have? Your tour guide, Faithann, is here to walk alongside you through the networking terrain, offering tips and tricks to network with ease. She'll also bring insightful interviews with successful business owners who have used networking to expand their businesses. Building relationships is the heart of networking, and generosity is the cruise ship that will navigate you toward those important relationships for your business or career. Grab your sunscreen and suitcase. Faithann is ready. Are you?
Hello there, and welcome to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast. I'm your host, Faithann. I'm glad you found the show. Networking is providing opportunities for others that they would not have except for you, so that you have standing to ask for opportunities from those same people when you need them. How do we create opportunities for others, and how do we ask for those same opportunities? Well, that's what this podcast is all about. It's what I'm here for. Let's dive into episode 23. Welcome, Amy, to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast. I'm so happy that you decided to say yes to this guest appearance.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, as always, to talk to you in any form that we can get together.
Yeah, you were so gracious to me when we first met, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But this series, listeners, is the experts we meet when we network, and so naturally, Amy came to mind. So I've said before, when we network, it's not only about putting offers in front of people, like building enough rapport to get people who are interested in working with you. But in addition, it's about meeting people who are very, very good at what they do and reaching out to them and having the familiarity and the comfortability to say, you have something I need. So there's just a two-way street. There's two-way benefits. So when we think about networking, we should always be thinking about the people that we're meeting in order for them to help us, not just meeting people so that we can help them. And so that's why this series was created, was to show you how the experts that I meet, how they view networking as a very important part of their business growth. That's what Amy has shown me. She's taught me so much about social media. So Amy, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for your clients.
Hi, okay. Thank you very much. I am Amy Singleton, and I am the owner and CEO of Hite Digital Norman, which is a full service digital marketing agency. And really, in just about the last year or so, we've started to refer to ourselves as a business growth agency because a lot of businesses don't understand marketing. They don't really know what marketing is. And the truth is, a lot of times it's not our marketing that's broken. It's our messaging that's broken. It's our systems that are broken. It's integrating that marketing in with your sales team that is broken. And so our goal is to help a business owner that is established get from where they are to where their goal is, to where they're going. And it's really hard to do that when you are the expert at what it is that you actually do on a day-to-day basis, but you are not a systems expert. You are not a processes expert. You are not a marketing or a messaging expert. So it's our goal to help businesses grow and thrive and stay in business, because let's be honest, owning a business is really hard work.
Right. It is very hard. You have to learn so much, like you said,
Yeah.
more than just your thing. You got to learn how to promote the thing and how to, the systems in the thing and follow up
Yeah,
with the
for sure.
thing and everything that is involved,
Yeah.
not just delivering the thing. And so
And
what's
life
the,
is a lot more than business. If I may, like, who I am extends far beyond just the business world. So who I am personally is a person that is on a mission to help others find hope beyond their failures, whether that be in their personal life, whether that be someone who has failed them. They've felt failed by others or failed by situations. And so that's the reason that I also host a podcast called Queen's Lead. I do speaking for inspirational and keynote speaking for women's groups and about marketing as well. But really, I think it's a really lonely place, especially as a business owner, to be sometimes. And so understanding that it's a whole life and not just segmented pieces of who we are.
Yeah, and your desire to give people hope, you phrased it a little better, but it comes across when you network because I have networked with you. That's how we met. So
Yeah.
that it's so important to have, your who you are come out when you're talking to people so that you have
Yeah.
some depth about you when it's not just about a website. It's not just about a lead magnet. There's depth there. So people can identify with you and learn to like you and trust you. So that
Yeah,
and
definitely.
everything you said comes out, from this side of the table. I'm saying that all comes out beautifully. Just talk to Amy for 5 minutes and that all comes out. So
Yeah.
we met through Business Networking International, and we were not in the same chapter, but we commonly have one-to-ones with people outside our chapter. It's encouraged. And I'll tell you, the day that we were supposed to meet, I almost canceled it because at the time I was very overwhelmed with short staffed. And you, very early in the conversation, we were talking, and you were asking me, what's the biggest problem in your business? I'm like, staff. And you said, we need to get you some employees. So I have
Yeah.
never forgotten that. And that was probably 3 years ago. I've never
Yeah.
forgotten that because in that moment, my problem became your problem, and it just seemed so genuine. It wasn't like you were just pretending to care. You cared. And then you said, "Well, have you tried this? And have you tried this? And you can do this." And I've never forgotten that. So now I perked up and I told myself on my way home, I said, "Man, I'm glad I didn't cancel this meeting. This is a
Right.
great person. This was a great one-to-one, and I've been following you and you've helped me so much with social media, and you just really know all the things. I mean, it's not only that you're caring and kind, but you know all the things in the digital
Yeah.
world, and you're very generous with your knowledge. And sometimes digital marketers are not generous with
Yeah,
their
for
knowledge, and
sure.
you are.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's definitely a mindset, I think especially when people are new in business and you see this in networking all the time, like people are motivated by their fear.
Mm.
They're motivated by their fear of not getting enough clients. They're motivated by their fear of someone taking their precious thing, but in the end, I just want to see everyone succeed, whether they become my client or not. It doesn't matter to me because a rising tide raises all ships, whatever that saying
Hmm.
is. When one of us succeeds, we all succeed. It's really easy to believe early on in business that everyone can be your client, and that's just not the truth. And so, when you lead with, I think the word authenticity gets thrown around a lot these days. But being truly authentic, being who you are, like you said, who I am, I can't hide it. I don't know if that's like a gift or what, but it shines through because I really do care about people and not just about their business or their website or their revenue. I care about people as human beings on this planet, on this journey of life with me. And whenever you can really see a person for who they are and identify, what does this person need today? Every time I sit down with a one-to-one, that person doesn't necessarily need a website. They don't need advertising. They don't need SEO. Sometimes they need encouragement. Sometimes they need a message from the Lord. Sometimes they need just to be told the truth in love about what they're trying to do. Like, Faithann, quit trying to do it all. You can't
Mm.
clean the windows and network and do all the books and do all the, the accounts receivable and everything. Get yourself some help, girl. You need help. You need some employees to take that load off of you. And so yeah, it's my pleasure to try and shine a light on the positivity in someone and what's going for them and help them to identify kind of the holes and the places that they can fill in and that they can take that one tiny step forward to their goal.
Right. I like that question. What does this person need today? I love it because it's what do they need today? When you can be the
Yeah.
most helpful, what do they need?
Yeah.
That's excellent. That ought to be on my list of the 10 questions to ask in a one-to-one, which you can download at thenetworkerstourguide.net/resources. So this is really cool. You said something right before we started recording that I would love for my listeners to hear for those who are very timid and shy, tell us about the change that has happened to you when you've been in rooms full of people you don't know.
Yeah. So, I one of the questions I ask everyone on my podcast is tell me about little girl you, or, tell me about what you were like. And so as a child, I was very outgoing. I was really completely unintimidated, completely bare before people. And there was a time in my life, I was about 8 or 9 years old when my parents had moved into a new home where they still live today. I didn't know a soul. And I went door to door knocking on doors going, "Hi, my name's Amy. Do you have any little kids or grandkids I can play with?" I mean, I had no fear. But somewhere along the way, and I'm finding this story over and over and over again, whether it's you were wild and loud and kind of obnoxious like I was, or whether you were shy and timid as a child, somewhere along the way, the world, our circumstances, people, situations change who that is. And so over the decades of my life, I had allowed um, the opinions of others and the stress of the world and maybe the judgment of other people to really take over who I was. And so and I was a nurse in a former life, I was an operating room nurse for over a decade, and then my health took that career from me. And so when I was new in business, um, and just starting out, BNI, like where we met, was the very first networking experience that I'd really ever had. I was so green. I didn't even know what networking meant. I was like,
Mm.
meeting people that I don't already know or that aren't in my family or in my church, or like, why would I want to go meet other people? Like, what's that all about? And when I joined that group, uh, it was terrifying to me. And it was in 2020, in the spring of 2020. So everything had already moved online. I was sitting in this very room, and they told me, okay, now you're going to have to come up with 60 seconds to tell us who you are, what you do, and what you need from this new group of friends, a new group of your new little sales troop that's going to go out and help to find you business. And I was like, uh, who am I? What do I do? What do I need? I don't know. Oh my gosh. And I remember I obsessed for at least an hour the night before of what I was going to say, who I was, like what trying to explain what it is that I do. And I had no idea what to say. And so I typed it out on a piece of paper and I printed it out, and I sat there, and there was like a little ticker coming up of like whose name's next. And I mean, I promise you, I didn't hear a single word that anybody else had said until it was my name. And then when my name come up, I grabbed my paper, and I kid you not, that paper was shaking. My hands were shaking. I was terrified because I thought, oh my gosh, all these people in this room are experienced business owners. They do this all the time. They know each other. Does anyone even like me? I mean, the pressure was on. And I rushed through that statement so fast. I'm pretty sure no one heard what I was saying. And now I was just telling you before we hopped on, I have 5 speaking engagements within the next like 4 weeks. And the trajectory that B and I put me on early on has been absolutely just magnificent transformation for me. And it wasn't just B and I, but all the other situations that I've put myself in, uncomfortable as can be. Growth does not happen when we're comfortable. I hate it when people say, like, talk about staying in your comfort zone. Forget your comfort zone, girl. You got to kick that door down with a steel-toed boot and
Mhm.
get uncomfortable. Growth is not comfortable. I remember as a child having actual growing pains in my legs when was growing physically. And that's what the experience for me has been like in networking. If people are new to networking, maybe that room is not about getting business for you. Maybe that room is about desensitizing yourself to the fear that you have when you're in groups. Maybe it is about listening more than we talk. Maybe it's about learning how we can actually serve someone else instead of walking in, doing what I call card shoving,
Yep.
just putting your card in everyone's hand, just, kind of spray and pray that someone will call you and want to do business with you. Maybe it's about a whole lot more than that. it's a learning experience. And that's what networking has been for me. It's been a real transformation of um, getting over my fear. My keynote speech now is called "Do It Scared,"
Mhm.
because even though we're not supposed to fear, we do.
Right.
And we always do it. It's a very human to fear. But fear does not have to be something that holds us back. It can be something that spurs us on and gets us over the hump of what we're absolutely terrified to do, which is exactly where I was when I first joined
Yeah.
BNI.
And even anybody who knows Amy, or if they watch her online, they would be very surprised to learn how terrified you were. One of the
Yeah.
things that an elevator pitch in BNI, we call it a 60-second presentation, and I've just finished a whole series on your 60-second presentation. But in other groups, they might not call it that, but that's what it is. So one of the wonderful things about forcing you to give one every week is it forces you to chip away at the nonsense and the fillers because you only have 60 seconds. And then
Yeah.
the main thing that I learned in regards to your 60-second presentation is that it's not about standing up and saying how wonderful and awesome you are. It's about helping the people find who you're looking for. And you can use your own client stories to help you craft who you're looking for. And that's one of the first things I learned in BNI was like, oh, because when I first started, I was Window Cleaning Plus. And so I would take what happened last week. Last week, Mary was having a party and she wanted her windows cleaned because she's going to have all these friends come over. So then I would say, the next week, I would say, this week I'm looking for your friend Mary. Well, I wouldn't say Mary, but your friend who's having a party. Now, this would be a great time to ask, well, have you thought about getting the windows cleaned too for this party? You ask, what all are you doing for your party? Well, I'm going to order a cake. I'm going to do this. Well, how about a window cleaning? And that's the perfect kind of education that your chapter members need because they may not think of it. So in website design, you're educating. Well, what are people doing and saying before they need to hire you? Educate your chapter members in that way. And that's when referrals come more easily.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's something that the BNI podcast and that you also constantly are trying to reiterate in people's minds is that when you ask for everything, you
You
get
get
nothing.
nothing.
Nothing drives me more crazy than someone standing up and saying, "I'm looking for anyone with a pulse because everyone needs life insurance." Well, no, you really don't want everyone. We just actually experienced this week. We had to fire a client because, I made the mistake of taking anyone,
Mm,
taking someone who is not an ideal client for us. And it always ends in disaster for everyone involved. It's not a good situation to be in. And so you don't want everyone. I think that's something that a lot of people new in networking need to figure out outside of just what they're saying. Who are they really looking for? Who is it that they can actually serve? And who is it um, that is going to have that shared value system that they have, especially if you are an ongoing relational type business. Getting into business with someone is like a marriage. And so, you definitely can't do business with everyone. It's okay that some people don't like you because you're just going to repel those people who are not ideal clients and be a magnet to those who do want to be a client of yours, and you'll get along a lot better that way.
Hi, listeners. Are you someone who struggles to make a great first impression when you meet others? Faithann has put together her guide to help you make a great first impression no matter where you are. This quick guide gives you simple tips to leave a powerful first impression, the first step to relationship building. Go grab this free resource today by clicking on the impressions link in the show notes.
right. And for your industry, probably the more intentional your message is, the more that you attract, the more you can
Yes.
really narrow down that messaging, the
Yeah.
more the right kind of people will come your way because you're going to be saying things and printing things and putting things online that resonate with your ideal client.
I'm a big fan of on the nose marketing, of just people try to get really kitschy with what it is that they're saying. And it doesn't work because it means something to you, but it doesn't mean something to the person that you're speaking of. And part of our job in networking is educating the people in the room, because the people in the room are not necessarily our clients, right? Especially in a group like BNI, it's actually really against their, for lack of better words, their
Yeah,
code of ethics to sell to the room.
right.
No, I sat in a BNI room for many years, and everyone who, I'm looking for you. You need a website. You need that. Nothing would turn me off faster than someone that's supposed to be on my team trying to sell to me. But
r-
educating them about who it is that you're looking for, that they know, that's in
Right.
their circle, that's going to be that ideal person. And then just expressing that message across your social media, across your website, across your print materials, what you're saying, like you said, um, that's ideal. The ideal situation is to educate someone about who it is that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's the way to look at it long term. That's easy. That's the easy road is, oh, I've got a room full of people. Let me see I can grab. No, a more mature, a more relationship outlook is, I need to, like you said, I need to educate the people on how to bring me their ideal referral. And in so doing, the person who's bringing you that referral gets some of the glory, gets to share in
Right.
the benefit of
Yeah.
bringing you the referral on both ends of that referral. You have a happy client who attributes it to you, and then you have a happy referral partner who's beyond gracious and grateful for the referral.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
Absolutely.
to it if you really dig down and think long term instead of short term. So I have just a couple more questions as we wrap this up. You did agree to be featured on my blog, and that is Tour 16, an owner of a digital marketing agency, talks networking. And one of the things that you said in that article, which you can find at the networkerstourguide.net/blog, is that if you find yourself outgrowing a room, and that could include a networking room, it's time to go find a bigger room to be in where you're not the all-knowing in that room. And I wanted you to help us know how to do that, because that can be scary.
Yeah, it really can be scary, especially if you've been in a committed group of the same people for a long time. I found myself in that BNI room after many years, and it had kind of timed out for me. There were no longer people in that room who were doing the kind of networking outside of that room to reach those ideal clients for me. And that really just came through my own understanding of who my ideal client was and who I could actually serve. And so it was, there are a lot of people who are loyal to a fault, but that can really, it can hold you back. And if you've done networking the right way, if you've established relationships in that room, those people are not going to be mad at you. In fact, I'm still great friends with most of the people that were in that room with me. But finding a different room where you can be challenged, and where, not necessarily a room that has people you can do business with. That's really not the goal, but a room where you can learn and where you can provide value, is essential. It was a really scary thing to think about leaving that comfort of, again, I said, do it scared. Everything we do in business can be scary, because everything worth doing is uphill. It's
Mm,
all uphill. And whenever you recognize that, then it becomes a little bit easier. But seeking out other rooms where you can serve, other rooms where you can learn, I always like to say I love being the dumbest person in a room. I love it. It used to be so intimidating, but as you kind of level up that room that you're in, although it can be intimidating, I think what you'll find, because what I have found is that um, the rooms that I've been able to get myself into have given me a seat at a table where people are even more willing to share their knowledge, even more willing to share their failures, even more willing to extend that hand and help you along the way. My mastermind group was extremely blessed to be mentored by Dr. John Maxwell himself this past year. And we sat on Zoom calls with him on a monthly basis and got to meet in person several times over that year. People like that seem untouchable. They seem like, oh my gosh, they're a millionaire. They've achieved all this, or they address the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they're leading, literally leading nations and leading economic and political groups. But I can promise you, you won't meet a man more willing to share his failure.
Mm.
You won't meet a person more willing to share their challenges and help you along the way than someone who's been there before and done what you're trying to do. So if you're thinking about getting out of your comfortable room where you've been for many years, and you kind of feel like you've gotten all the juice for the squeeze that you've been in, I challenge you to look for people, not necessarily look for a bigger room, not necessarily look for a room with fancier people or with bigger businesses, but look for a room with people who have done what you are trying to do. What is it that they have achieved that's on your vision board? If they're a speaker, if they're an author, if they have a podcast like Faithann, these are the people that you want to be looking toward. There are a lot of coaches right now. There are a lot of mentors or leaders um, that I have been able to learn from, but never have I learned more from someone than looking at someone who has already achieved what I'm trying to achieve, and letting them guide me along the way because they've already been there. They've done messed it up in every single way that it can possibly be messed up, and then they've achieved what it is that you're looking to achieve. So that would be my advice for someone trying to get into a different room where they can be challenged.
That is great advice. So clear and easy to understand and take action on. And
Yeah.
yeah, the irony is that the more accomplished people become, the more they are willing to share. And it's usually the people who haven't really done much that are so prideful and guarded.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
you'd think it'd be the
Yeah.
opposite, but that's generally what you find is the more successful people are understand how hard it is, and the people
Yeah.
um, who haven't accomplished much think that they need to be so protective. It's
Yeah. I mean, it just comes down to me, it comes down to the mindset that it takes to achieve those things. With so many of us, especially when we're starting out, we're still stuck in a pauper mindset.
yeah,
And people who have achieved a lot, they live in a wealth mindset. They live in a mindset that says there is enough for everyone. There is enough success for all of us. There are billions of people on this planet that we couldn't all possibly be friends with them all. We couldn't possibly do business with them all. And that there's enough for all of us. And it really comes down to the fear and the pauper mindset that many of us live in, based on our childhood or our past or things that have held us back, but looking forward to that wealth mindset of knowing, it's all going to be okay. Money
mm,
flows, money comes, money goes, relationships come, they go, and there's always enough for everyone to go around.
well said. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I always ask people two questions before I let them go. And so, Amy, when you are networking, what do you like to see people do? And what do people do that you do not like and think, man, I'm not going to do that, or I'm glad I don't do that?
Okay, so I always start with the bad news first. So for me, the thing I hate to see is card shoving. I already kind of mentioned it earlier, but people just walking around putting their card in everyone's hand that will take it. To me, that is a get kind of mindset. What can I get from you? That never works. Don't do it. It's just it's not a good look. Nobody likes that. And what's sad is that like a lot of people just don't know any better. And so if you're a leader in that room, being kind enough to tell that person, and guide them and coach them through what will work versus what won't work. trying to shake as many hands as you possibly can in the room. That never works either. Like, you can't get to know anyone intentionally with a spray and pray tactic. You're not going to get to know all 30 people in the room in 1 hour. But what I love to see is intentional conversations and intentional questions that are happening that are not about business. I want to know what people are excited about. I want to know about their children. I want to know about what little girl Faithann was like. I want to know what you're looking forward to this weekend, because in my line of work, especially, it's a relationship for sure. It's not a transactional, like, I'm a plumber, let me come fix your sink. Okay, great. In that situation, maybe someone doesn't need to know all of that information, but the better you can get to know someone, the more willing to share their life and their challenges they're going to be with you. And that's where you can actually understand what motivates someone, because what motivates them in their personal life is the same thing that motivates them in their business. It's the same thing that motivates them in their decision, and it's also the same thing that's going to endear you to them. I can't tell you how many conversations, and I use the word conversation loosely because I'll be at a networking event or meeting and ask a person a question, and there is nothing someone loves to talk about more than themselves.
Right.
Even if they are shy, if you're in a very intimate corner of the room or sitting side by side, people love to talk about themselves. We are in a very fast paced, very attention starved world. And if you give someone that space to talk about who they are, I've had conversations that lasted an hour where I didn't say a word about myself other than my name.
Mm-hmm.
And people have come back to me, or I've heard in other conversations or been introduced to people because of those conversations, because of opening my ears and shutting my mouth, which, trust me, is hard for someone like me. But
Mm-hmm.
I've been called, oh my gosh, you have to meet Amy Singleton. She is the most interesting person. And I think to myself, you don't know anything about me. Like, why am I interesting to you? But it's because I'm interested
Right.
in who they are. Not, tell me all about your plumbing business. Like, okay, well, I mean, fine, I can tell you about my plumbing business, but that's kind of boring. But when tell me about where you went to college. One of my favorite questions is, how did you meet your spouse? Tell
Yeah.
me that story. Tell me about your kid. What are they doing? Do you have grandkids? People light up, and it opens a door or into their life of who they are, and that is where the intentional connection starts to happen. And that's really hard to remember when you're new in business and you're new to networking and you're just like, oh my God, I need a client. I need a client so bad. I just need someone to know about what it is that I do. I promise you that your referrals will go further. Your business will go further when you are interested in somebody as a human being, not as a business owner.
Right. Oh, you're preaching my language, man. You're just preaching. Yeah, I have a blog called Bring a Bucket to the Well. And that very thing, you ask somebody a strategic, well thought out question, and you allow them to reach into a well and pull up a
Mhm.
story they didn't even know they had.
Yeah.
And then they walk away saying, I had a great conversation with Amy. And like you said, no, it wasn't so much that as it was that you strategically allowed them to access memories, to access all the feels so that
Mhm.
they remember that. And then like you, to your point, you said, well then how does that help me in my business? Well, if you're the person that has given them that great feeling, and then what about tomorrow? Their aunt's complaining about XYZ. Well, it just so happens that you do the very thing that their aunt is
That's right.
complaining about, which they would have
That's right.
never remembered had you
Right.
not asked a wonderful question like, tell me about little girl Faith Ann. Tell me, how did you meet your spouse? I asked somebody, tell me about your favorite Christmas present. And it was in January. Oh, she pulled
Yeah.
up a whole story. You know,
Yeah.
and one thing cool too is that I learned something about her in this story that I would have never known. She loves Christmas. Like
Mhm.
she really loves it. And so this year, since I knew that, I said I bought her a Christmas present. I mean, she's a referral
Yeah.
partner. Like she's not my
Mhm.
cousin or my daughter. She's just somebody that she's a friend, but since I knew that, I was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to buy her something special because this is going to
Yeah.
mean more than if somebody bought me some towels or something and be like, well, thank you. I mean, Christmas is not my thing. But
Yeah.
for her, it was. But I learned that because I asked a
Yeah.
good question.
That's right.
Yeah.
And something else that goes along with that too is, whenever you ask a question, you can be, if you're kind of beyond, you sort of already know the people in the room, and maybe a lot of the stories about them. When you ask an intentional question, think about the question you want to ask, because people do not prepare. People are very lazy for the most part. But when you ask a question, a lot of times they are so lazy and so unprepared, they will ask you that same question back. And I think it might have been you that actually taught me this. They will ask that same question back. So then you have an opportunity to share that thing that you want to share, with that person. And then sometimes it can open up into more of a conversation about something intentional that you want to share yourself. And in turn, you've learned something about the person you initially posed the question to.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Well,
Yeah.
Amy, where can people find you as we wrap this episode up?
You can find everything about me, the business, the podcast, and everything I do at amysingleton.net, or all of my social handles are the real Amy Singleton, because I keep it real.
Okay. Now, in my ears, you broke up a little bit when you said your
Oh,
website.
okay.
Can you say it one more time?
Yeah. You can find everything about me, the business, Hite Digital Norman, and my podcast at amysingleton.net. And all of my social handles are at the real Amy Singleton.
All right. Well, go check her out, listeners. If you want some website help, check her out. She's really good on social media too, like learning about somebody who is intentional with her social media. See what she posts, because she has great engagement on her page, because she makes it primarily about educating and sharing with her audience who she really is, which is a great benefit for all of us. So thanks, Amy. And we're so glad to have your knowledge on the Networkers Tour Guide podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to the Networkers Tour Guide podcast with Faithann Basore. Share this episode with a friend, and be sure to come back next week for more networking tips and tricks from the Networkers Tour Guide.